do.
In Dota 2, Pudge is he's a guy that likes.
You're Pudge?
I'm Pudge. Fresh meat, fresh meat, fresh meat, fresh meat. Fresh meat.
Dyer's courier has been killed.
I'm so excited.
Storm spirit, who's that handsome devil? Ooh, who's that handsome devil? I only want blue tangos in my dressing room. I only want blue tangos in my dressing room. And then people like Earth Shaker. There are many Earths, but only one Earth Shaker.
OG, too late to brag.
When you're thinking, is your inner monologue in any of those voices, or is it just your plain old voice?
I'm so proud that you think that I'm thinking.
Have they been feeding you?
Well, they've been treating me like a voice actor.
How is that?
Well, that they put me in a rat-infested dungeon with a bowl of water and a crust of spoiled bread, which makes me very happy as a voice actor. That's as best as it ever gets for me.
Maybe they can delay it long enough for it to be isolate and filter properly. They're all together. PPD, here comes the ice blaster, and he's gonna die!
There are many Earths, but only one Earth Shaker.
He's a real human being! Who knew?
Well, I gave her one guitar lesson, and then she just wanted to kiss and make out.
I just wanted the guitarist. I didn't want the guitar lessons.
This was a triumph. I'm making a note here, huge success. It's hard to overstate my satisfaction. Aperture science. We do what we must because we can. For the good of all of us, except the ones who are dead. But there's no sense crying over every mistake. You just keep on trying till you run.
But we met in Arnhem, the Netherlands, in 1984.
In September of 1984, and we were on this tour. We went around Europe, staying in all these wonderful 600-year-old hotels, and working 3 hours a night, and sightseeing the rest of the time. And it was just very, very, very romantic.
Yes. Yeah, we did other things besides sightseeing.
Ooh, who's that handsome devil? Yes, we did other things besides sightseeing. But we probably shouldn't get into that right now. I was studying to be a composer and working on my doctorate, but I realized that the only thing you can do with a doctorate in music composition is teach music theory someplace, and I didn't want to be a professor at a university. Yeah. And so we moved back to New York because I was working on my doctorate in Indiana, and I know everyone in Chile knows where Indiana is. But it's a state in the Midwest. We moved back to New York, and we realized that if we stayed there, we'd never see each other again.
Heard that Seattle, Washington had a big theater community and a lot of theater work, and it does. And
there were also a lot of mountains around here, and I grew up in Colorado, which is a very mountainous state in the West. And I thought, if we're not going to stay in New York and go for the big time, let's move to Seattle, and where I can climb mountains.
Yeah, and we had no idea, because computer games didn't even really exist at that point. So
yeah, you had arcade games,
yeah.
But as far as games you could play on your computers, you're talking about little apples that are the size of a Kleenex box, and they just didn't have any processor power. So we didn't have the strangest notion that we would ever be working in computer games.
Yeah, we came here for live theater. And that's what we have done, are still doing.
And so when we moved out here, I did. And I got an agent. And for the first 5 years, I was doing, Kentucky Fried Chicken commercials and what they call industrial films for, various industries and stuff like that.
Boeing.
Yeah, and stuff. And a few, a couple of television shows, a couple little movies. But then in 1995, I got my first audition for a video game, which was, I believe, Spy Fox breakfast cereal. And I got that job, and then I got Betrayal at Antara, and I really started getting a lot of work in video games. And really in 1999 or 2000, I think, I got an audition, my first audition with Valve for Half-Life 2. And at that time, Ellen was kind of going through a lull in her career, so I encouraged her to get a voice demo, which she'd never done. And so she did.
2002.
2002. And so she auditioned for Valve. And this is, the way you get work in video games is the same way that an actor gets work in anything. You have to get the audition, which means having an agent, and then you have to do a good enough job on the audition that they want to hire you. So Valve had already hired me to be the voice of all the citizens and Odessa Cubbage in Half-Life 2. And then Ellen auditioned for them, and they hired her to be the voice of the Overwatch. Now, at this point, Valve didn't know that we were married. They had no idea that we were married. And we did all the recordings for Half-Life 2. And then I landed the audition as the sniper in Team Fortress 2. And Ellen landed the audition as the announcer in Team Fortress 2. And they still didn't know that we were married until about halfway through Team Fortress 2, when they happened to book us on adjacent sessions in the same recording studio. And I think Ellen was there first, and she said, "Oh, you're going to be working with my husband next." And they went, "What?" And that's the first time they heard that we were married to each other. And they thought that was hilarious. And then Ellen auditioned for GLaDOS in Portal, and just was launched into international fame. But they thought it was so funny that we were married to each other that they had to hire us as the bickering married couple at the end of Left 4 Dead. I'm the guy on the houseboat radio, and Ellen's in the background going, "What? Don't, there's zombies all over the place. Don't, what are you doing? We need to go," and all that kind of stuff. So they thought that was pretty funny. But really, how we started working for Valve was just that. We auditioned, and we got the job.
We auditioned.
Yeah. And they've made us audition for everything since. I mean, even for
Yes.
Dota. Even for Dota, we had to audition. The recording studio, they give you pages full of lines, and you read them.
Yeah, and I think of it as pure acting, because all you use is your imagination and your voice, and it doesn't matter what you look like. Everything is what you do with your thoughts and your voice.
And you have to make up the entire world around you, too. I mean, you don't have any sets, you don't have any lights, you don't have anything like that. So it's really just a lot of fun. And, of course, early on, it was very funny because, as you can imagine, particularly at the beginning of the industry, all the people involved in writing and creating video games were young people who were very much into computers and making puzzles and making mazes and animation and stuff like that. None of them had ever worked with actors before. And so finally I got to this one line, and it was just "Goodbye, son." And I said, well, that could be, you could read it a million different ways depending on what's going on. And I said, well, why am I saying goodbye to my son? And so they had no idea. They had to call up the writer, and they were talking to him. Finally got back to me, and they said, okay, so this is a place where the game branches. Your son is either going to go down the street and get some bread and be home right away, or he's going to walk through this interdimensional portal and disappear into universe, and you're never going to see him again. So could you say it in a way that would work either way? And I said, okay, goodbye, son. They said, yeah, that's great. That'll work fine. So, but they just had no idea. But by the time I was doing No One Lives Forever and The Suffering and games like that, the writers were always in the room, and they had come to learn how to interact with actors, what kind of information actors needed in order to do their job.
And Valve, our work for the Valve games, the Valve writers and producers give very good direction, very clear direction. They know exactly what they want. So it makes it easier for me.
And a lot more fun, because the writers of video games are all insane. They're just hilarious people. And we as actors are insane too. And so we get along very well with each other. It's just a big...
Bloody hell.